Service Lab is a community of service design doers and the service design curious. We meet up every few months to share our learnings with each other. We are first going to be hearing from Callie at the GlassHouse. Then we're going to be hearing from Jude at InHouse Records. Then we're going to be hearing from Meg and Tori from Fat Macy's, and then Alice from Pivot. So the GlassHouse is a social enterprise offering second chances through horticultural training in the disused glasshouses of UK prisons. I will now hand over the stage to Callie.
Hi, I'm Callie. I'm one of the directors at the GlassHouse, and I thought I'd just walk you through our story and what it has been like starting a social enterprise at the beginning of COVID, which had a totally different business plan from the beginning that we do now. So not totally, but very different. And yet the social impact is still very much the same and maybe even stronger because of what we've been through. But we basically came up with the idea for the GlassHouse in kind of mid-2019 when I had run a business for a while, a shop and a cafe, and sold a lot of plants and worked with plants there, and was doing some volunteering at a local prison, doing barista training and employing and training some of the women who were about to be released to go out into the world and get jobs. And when I visited the prison, I realized that there were massive spaces that were not being used really at all in the prison. And my partner and I, who went to visit the prison, she saw them first, noticed that the glass houses many were disused and falling apart, and they weren't growing. And they had some agricultural programs, but had been cut so much that there wasn't a great deal. And so we kind of came up with a business plan, and we approached the MOJ. And after some negotiations and contracting, we settled on a contract with them in January of 2020, and then went on to open the glass houses and start working in the glass houses the following month in February, which was great. And we immediately had a lot of interest from the women at East Sutton Park Prison, because I think the glass houses are quite a special place, and we did a bit of work on them, but they were pretty rough at the beginning. And we had 3 clients in place ready to start in March, where we would be doing interior landscaping. So the plan was that we would go in and we would quite large offices. We would provide plant installations for them, and then a maintenance service. And so our first group of women were brought in, trained in those areas of installation and maintenance, and we were ready to start that in March of 2020, at about the time that COVID hit. And so all of those clients, the 3 clients that we'd kind of secured to start with, fell away almost immediately. Some of them said, maybe at a later date, and I think we thought that might be summer. But so immediately we were kind of forced to kind of look at if we wanted to continue working in the glass houses with the team we'd put together, and what we could do to keep that going. And so we basically started doing a lot of outreach to companies. Probably in May, I think we finally realized the impact of what was happening, and that it wasn't a temporary thing. And we basically reached out to companies and offered to send plants to their employees in their home offices. So, employees could do a kind of, let's see if I can move this down, a supportive kind of mailing to their employees isolated and working from home. And this was our original offering here. So that's kind of the business plan shifted to that in about May. And we had really great feedback. We got Brompton Bicycles and Vodafone and Cook and Lloyd's and Lockton, lots of really big, great companies. And we definitely kept very busy sending out plants, probably from kind of June to September. We sent out thousands of plants to employees of companies, which was amazing. And we've continued to do that a little bit, but it did kind of slow down. And I think we weren't sure if that was really a sustainable thing. And it still didn't look like offices were going to open, or retail or hospitality were going to reopen anytime soon. So the installation and maintenance business still was really insecure for us. So we decided we would start retail, which we really never thought we would do. So we basically launched a retail site in November, and have just had incredible response to that. And I think that has really made us realize that the story of what we do, and that's our website, actually, let's take it down there. The story of what we do, of working in the glass houses, and of kind of, not only do we kind of bring women in and we train them to do what our business does, but they get a horticultural qualification. And when they actually leave prison, we have a service that will help them get placed in a job, and we'll also help them with housing as well. And I think what we realized is that really was resonating with people. The fact that these people, often when they get out of prison, they really struggle to reestablish themselves in life. And so having something, a new skill, and kind of people around them who are going to support them will make a massive impact. We've because of COVID, it's a funny year. We've only had one person released from prison, and she worked for us directly for a while, and now she's gone and worked in a chiropractor's office in the reception, and evidently it is full of plants, which is great. So the object is not necessarily that everyone goes and works in horticulture, but it gives them skills that will allow them to build their confidence and give them, some experience so they can go work in other areas. We have 3 women getting released shortly, and we're working on jobs for them now, but we had a lot of interest in them because once they have the qualification and they've worked with us and been so consistent and strong and done well, I think that they are really employable, and we speak, we can speak very highly for them. And as far as what the women say about the glass house, they're incredibly grateful for the opportunity to work there. They're beautiful places, even though they're not like stunning, fancy glass houses like you would picture at Q. They're really beautiful industrial buildings that work so well, even though they're probably, 40 or 50 years old. And the women love being in there. They say that, it's kind of, when you work when you live in a women's prison, it's very hard to find quiet places, and it's very hard to kind of let your mind kind of really think about what it wants to think about and not what's going on around you. And the feedback from them has been incredible to hear about how it's made their mental health and physical health, I think, as well, because they're outside and they're working with their hands and they're getting fresh air, how it's made such a massive difference. The prison where we work, East Sutton Park Prison, is an open prison. And so this is usually people who come there have about 2 years left on their sentence. And so they are kind of getting ready to go out. And I think projects like this can make such a difference in that environment when they're really nervous and unsure about what it's going to be like when they leave. And having a year or two doing a project like this really gives them so much more assuredness and confidence, and lets them feel ready for the next step in their life and finding a new life, and hopefully having success. And for us now, we're really focused on a lot of different markets because we felt like we've had to. And a big one that we didn't expect, but that has come out, is interior designers. They've really, a lot of interior designers have called us, and we've been supplying to several designers, which has been amazing. And so we'll be working a lot more with interiors now. And the women are really excited about that because having exposure to really beautiful spaces is something they also haven't experienced in a while. And so seeing like really inspirational, soft, beautiful interiors, I think they feel really positive about that as well. So that's quite nice. And we'll just continue looking for new ways to reach people and to grow the business and grow plants at the same time. And we're really proud of our team and everything we've done in the last year. And I will ask if there are any questions now.
That was great. Thank you, Callie. It was such a simple story, but also so impactful. So it was really great to get a bit of exposure to your project and how you set up and everything. We have a couple of questions in. I actually regret the fact that I prepare all my questions. Not regret, I hope that we'll have time also to ask all the questions I prepare. So we have one question from Mia asking, saying it's really fascinating, and how did you identify user needs, both from prisoners and customers?
I think So one of the people that started, my fellow director, she basically had been working, doing some kind of work with prisoners before, and had built a relationship with this open prison specifically to support women who were coming out. And the prison would basically recommend women to her who needed maybe a bit of extra support to find housing if they didn't have family or a support network to help them. And she would basically help them get settled in housing. She would, give them some support in that area. And then if she could also help with work. And so having been exposed to women like that and seeing that she was getting, regular requests for that, and there were so many more that were behind those that didn't have a lot of support or help when they came out, we realized that there was a real need to kind of whilst their prison is actually great at some things, that transition is a really tricky time for people. And you almost have to get like a micro kind of effect going where each person gets a lot of individual attention during that period to make that transition really work and for them to get reestablished in life. So that kind of taught us that, seeing that happen beforehand. And even now in prison, I see it even more. Working in prison, I see it all the time there needs to be more of that. And in terms of the customers, obviously we love houseplants, but we had noticed that there was a massive trend for houseplants as well that had been growing. There had been this kind of wave. And it was doing the business was based on the fact that the glasshouses were there and available, and that trend was there, and that we could use that space and create a product that sure, the actual product is available from other suppliers or other people, but not with our story and not grown in a social environment. And we also are very eco about the way we work. We don't use peat at all. All of our packaging is totally recycled and recyclable. And we don't pass on any single plastic. So every plant we sell comes in this beautiful Italian handmade clay pot. So we try to be very supportive of the environment as well.
That's great. That was a really comprehensive answer. We also have another question from Natalia that is asking, saying it's such a wonderful initiative. Are you thinking about extending your work in non-open prisons?
That's a really interesting question, because we are, and there's been a lot of interest. It's a tricky thing working in a closed prison, because there'll be a lot more regulations coming in and out with the people who like myself, who go in the prison regularly, but also with our packaging and shipping. And so these are areas that we're kind of looking at figuring out if that's possible. It's a lot of prisons have kind of levels of openness, and even if they don't have a fully open area, sometimes there are more privileged areas. And we're hoping that if we kind of can create an environment, then we can work within those areas, kind of the top kind of where the women have worked hard enough and been kind of have achieved a point where they can be in a slightly more open environment. But there are a few. We're hoping, our plan actually originally when we made the contract with the MOJ was to have 3 prisons by this time. And because of COVID, we just haven't been able to. But this year we are looking now at opening another prison, and we're hoping it will be a closed women's prison actually.
That's great. There are other couple of questions. I'm going to pick one, but then if you have some time to just answer in the chat, that would be.
I'll be really quick. Sorry, I'm.
No, that's fine. Just saying that the other questions also will come through. We will make sure they will be answered in the chat. The other question is kind of related to if you do anything or you're thinking about doing anything with older age homes to engage elderlies and communities, institutional projects, kind of like what is your vision, I guess, for expanding this and using it also with other groups and other communities?
We haven't thought specifically about working with older age groups, but we are kind of aware of the possibility of providing jobs and providing more security for people at risk who maybe haven't been in prison, but maybe at risk of going to prison or at risk of behavior that might go to prison. And so we're certainly thinking that that's something in the next stage. And as we grow, that we'll focus on at-risk kind of groups within the public, young people, possibly that we can reach before they actually have a prison sentence.
Thank you, Callie, and thank you for your presentation and for answering these questions. There are a few ones left in the chat. I'm going to pass it to Charlie for the next speakers, but if you can look at them, I think there will be also some requests as well that you might be interested.
Great, excellent. Thank you so much for letting me speak. Thanks.
Thank you.
So next up, we have Judah Armani talking about InHouse Records. InHouse Records is a rehabilitative record label for change, operating in and out of UK prisons. So over to you, Jude.
So I've got a service design practice. It's been going for about 15 years. I operate in decades because I like sticking around. I've done a decade in homelessness and now about 6 years in the criminal justice system. And fundamentally, we co-create the spaces for people to be able to solve their own problems. I had a really beautiful slide of Manet's Tuileries Gardens, partly because Manet is a bit of a hero along with Dickens. They were able to use art as a way of being able to raise awareness of social issues, which I thought was super cool and super clever. So you're reading a book, but actually you're being challenged by workhouses, or you're going to a gallery, but actually you're seeing something that maybe Napoleon doesn't want you to see. So this concept of inherently being able to see change within each of us, which is what Manet's picture was about. If you haven't seen it, go and check it out, Manet's Tuileries Gardens. He painted basically all of his friends, all of his colleagues, all of the people that he hung out with, and even himself. And that was kind of a part of a celebration of everybody being co-creators in change. I very much see that in all the people that we work with and all of the initiatives that we create. And so one such initiative was InHouse Records. It's a record label for change. It operates in and out of 7 UK prisons, 3 USA prisons on the East Coast. And it started in 2017. Fundamentally, we take the tasks that you would normally associate with a normal record label, we turn that into a soft curriculum. We add in a bit of accreditation and some GCSEs. We throw in some distance learning, formed and informed by a neurodiverse community. So we try and cut out as many words as possible, and we try and put in illustrations and make it multi-sensory where we can. And we, since COVID, wrap it all up in a full-colour music magazine that's technically education by disguise, where we provide industry-led qualifications and opportunity for the guys to be able to connect with us upon release, full-time mentoring, studio time, and release music distributed through Universal and published through Sony. That's kind of like the whole thing of what InHouse is. We've got a monthly progress reports that everybody engages with that focuses on core competencies, communication, accountability, adaptability. We've designed and co-created that with RCA service design guys and Ernst & Young. And this monthly reporting actually becomes a CV and a resume when the guys leave jail. We have been operating, since I said, since 2017. We have a reoffending rate of less than 1%. We increase positive behaviour in the prisons we operate in. We absolutely reduce the negative behaviour and the violence in the prisons we operate in. At any given point, we're working now with a couple of thousand guys a week. We are a safe and enabling environment for our participants to be able to explore real change, focus on their strengths, not their weaknesses, and make sense of a future. I was going to show you a picture of a guy called Beats, which would have been awesome because he'd have been pointing at the InHouse sign of our offices in Brighton, and we've got a studio in London. And then I was going to play this super cool song that he created. The reason why I wanted to share with Beats with you is because we met him in 2017, and he was labelled as a bit of a problem with negative labels, learning disorder labels like dyslexia and ADHD. And very much the things that he was, the way people were using to describe him were short attention span, unable to focus, or only focused on certain things that he was interested in and not the elements that the person that was leading the session wanted to engage in. Ironically, 3 years later, we're using similar phrasing, but in a positive sense. So we welcomed the fact that he had short attention span, because that enabled him to be able to work on lots of different small mini projects. We welcomed the fact that he was really curious, because that became a sense of creativity and engagement. And actually Beats went on to learn guitar, super guitarist, amazing voice, brilliant beatboxer, which is where he got his name from. And you would have been amazed by this track that I can't play you. But he's home now, and he's super engaged with what we're doing, and he's part of the first tranche of artists that we're going to release. There, that's me.
That's great. Thank you for that. I think that also your description actually make us all imagine all the kind of images that you were describing. So I think it was a good way to do it. And I'm also going to share the link of InHouseRecords.org. There will be, I guess, some of the visuals that you were describing, or some of the videos, perhaps. So also if anyone wants to look at them afterwards, already there are some questions about how can we find the track on YouTube, and questions like this one.
Yeah.
Or if you want also to share some of the links directly in the chat, I think that would be useful. There is a question from Andre asking, can you share more about how you track metrics in relation to this type of project?
Yeah, 100%. There's lots of different ways that we do the metrics. There's ones where we do, and then ones that the prisons do themselves. So the prisons all measure on case notes people's positive and negative behavior. That's fine, and then they share that with us. We measure core competencies. We measure the growth in accountability, communication, and adaptability. And we do that through the quality of tasks that the guys are set. So they might be set a task of, cool, you want to record an EP? In order to record an EP, you've got to write lyrics for at least 4 or 5 songs. In order to do that, we need to work out the planning that you need to do that. So we were able to create 1 month of planning and work that we're able to do. In terms of the more meta-narrative and the metrics of our reoffending, for example, so we work closely with probation. Actually, probation work closely with us, because most of our guys stay in touch with us more than they do probation. But anyway, so they engage with us, and we're also able to say, look, we are working with X amount of people at any given time, which, because we offer one-to-one mentoring 5 days a week, and we've got studio time, we're able to say the people that we know are engaging with us and not involved in madness. And we're equally able to say to the people that have disengaged with us and we don't know where they're going, or the people that are flagged up as going back into prison or not. So our metrics are not in terms of we need to track people, because we are a through the gate service. So we operate on the outside, and fundamentally that's what InHouse was created for, was to be able to contribute to reduce reoffending. That's the element portion that we can measure with confidence.
Great, thank you. I think that the following question you have really kind of answered quickly, but maybe you want to build or add something to it about amazing that you only 1% reoffend. How do you stay in touch with participants?
We are, hey Karen from Rhode Island School of Design. That's where we last met. We stay in touch with participants because that's the whole point. We're a record label that operate on the outside of prison and on the inside of prison through B, C, D prisons and correctional facilities in America. So the whole point is we develop the relationship, and then the guys continue to work with us on the outside.
Great. Last question, I think. Maybe we have a couple of more minutes if someone else has a question. But do you ever collaborate with Five Keys out of California?
No, but I'm going to get in touch with them.
There you go. Karen wrote this message.
You should, Judah.
Okay,
They're, sorry to interrupt, they're award-winning group I met at the Harvard Kennedy School Innovations Government Lab, and they award amazing people across the world who are doing amazing kinds of innovations. And so anyway, out of Cali.
West Coast 5, thank you.
Thank you so much. That was great. And if you can share the links, couple of links I shared the main website. Maybe it's going to be enough. That will be really helpful. Also, congratulations, all your improv with all these devices.
I'm so sorry.
No, absolutely, yeah. It was great.
Okay.
Great. Cool. Let's move on to the next speaker if they're ready. We have Meg and Tori from Fat Macy's. I'm gonna pass it on to Charlie.
Thanks again, Jude. That was fantastic. So next up, we've got the brilliant social enterprise that is Fat Macy's. Fat Macy's is a shop and catering service that enables them to train up and support young Londoners living in temporary accommodation with the aim of helping support them move into their own homes. So we're going to hear from both Meg and Tori today about Fat Macy's and what they've been up to. Over to you.
Hi everybody, I'm Meg. I'm going to try to not talk for too long, but I always do because I want to pass on to Tori, who's actually got the more interesting things to say probably for all of you lot today. But we both work at Fat Macy's, which is a catering social enterprise that exists to get young Londoners out of homelessness and into their own homes. And we do this through food. So essentially we're a catering company and restaurant as of January, or deli, I should say, due to lockdown, which exists to help young people living in temporary accommodation on their journey from hostel to their own home. I'm just going to touch on quickly why we exist, because I think it's always interesting to sort of give a bit of context. But there's been a 50% rise in homelessness in England since 2010. And specifically for those people living in temporary accommodation, what's really difficult is that transition out of homeless hostel, temporary accommodation shelter and into their own homes. And I think many people think rough sleeping is the issue and they just have to get into a hostel and then that's it, game over. But actually there's so many different transitions that people face at very different points throughout that journey. And so what we're specifically looking at is that bit where people get stuck in a hostel, so very temporary accommodation, and really struggle with that transition to move out into their own home, because the way the benefit system works, the way services have been designed very badly, it means that it's really difficult for people to move on. So we exist, we're a catering company with sort of two big differences. And I suppose this is what makes us a social enterprise as opposed to just a sort of catering business or a deli. So one is recruitment and the second is profits. And I think these are the two things that really set us apart from a lot of other social enterprises working in this space. So the first is recruitment, as I said. And so instead of just sort of hiring a full staff team, what we do is we have our team that exists of really great professional chefs who've all sort of come from great restaurants and other businesses across London. But we always have spots available in our rotas, which are for trainees. And so we find our trainees by going into hostels, or we did pre-COVID, they now come to us. But we run these training academy days for people living in temporary accommodation who are interested in the work that we do. And then we offer them from that an opportunity to sort of meet the team, learn about what we do and do this level 2 food hygiene qualification. It's a very basic qualification, but for a lot of people, you know, a really good stepping stone because it helps you get a job in any industry in the sort of food industry. And then anyone that completes that training day and we sort of get on with well and we think is a good fit, we offer a place on our milestone program. And so this is a 200-hour work experience placement in our business, and it's very much in our business. It's not sort of on the side. They're like people are fully embedded into the work that we're doing. And we run this 200-hour program over the course of sort of 6 months for some people, a year for others, 2 years for others. You know, it's very much designed based on what the individuals need or want. And it's an opportunity for them to really get proper on-the-job training and sort of these milestone rewards. So we offer people small rewards at timestamps throughout the journey so they can get those essentials that people really need. Often that's ID for people, or they need clothes or shoes for interviews and things like that. And it culminates right at the end in the housing deposit. So where I spoke to the profit part, instead of just being a catering company that exists for profit, we put a percentage of our profits into a charity, and that builds as this housing deposit fund that then individuals are able to access and sort of find the accommodation they need. So we really try to look at everything an individual might need on that journey and do our best to provide some level of support rather than being too sort of top down and deciding for them what's best for them, which I think, as we can all agree, doesn't often work. So this is just a really lovely illustration that I keep showing to everyone at the moment, just because I'm really proud of it. But it's probably really hard for anyone to read. But this is sort of the journey that starts at step 1 with people that we meet living in temporary accommodation, and ends at step 12 with them sort of in their own homes. And I suppose just to touch on some of the things that I thought would probably be quite interesting for you lot as designers, or people interested in design. Our whole service has really been built based on conversations. So I went into this with no knowledge really about anything useful or connected to anything that we did, that we now do, but worked in a homeless shelter and just spoke to people and learned from them what was going well, what was potentially not going so well, where the barriers were, and how they thought they could best sort of overcome certain barriers. And I suppose the whole thing, from the idea through to the actual design and the program design that Tori's going to touch on, is very much based on learning and listening and then changing, and really providing a service that is something that people want, not something that I think they might want, because I think that's really important. And that goes all the way down to the name and the logo. It's actually a really weird version of the logo that's got a little white splodge in the middle, so apologies. But the logo and the name is all very much with that in mind. So we really wanted a brand, an organization, an ethos that people felt proud to be part of, and could connect to. And it wasn't sort of a homelessness project or anything like that. And I think actually in everyone that's speaking today, that's really clear, that that's really understood, and really important, that your beneficiaries, or whoever you call them, really have to relate to what you're doing and the brand and the ethos. It's not just the service. So yeah, that's another one that I thought was helpful. I've massively gone over time, so I'm going to skip over. This is our new site. Please come down and see it, but I won't dwell on it too much. And I'll pass on to Tori to talk about the support curriculum.
So part of what we do along the way on our milestone program, along with the work experience, is a one-to-one support program. So that is led by our team of progression officers. And as it's just, we provide one-to-one support for our trainees. Just under a year ago, we started working with Charlie to redesign our support curriculum. It's a project that we'd been mulling over and maybe putting off for some time. The progression team is a relatively new development at Fat Macy's, and after sort of a year of feeling out what the role is and what the trainees needed and wanted from the team, we knew that we had to put some structure in place. And as that first lockdown hit and we couldn't meet our trainees in person and they couldn't get in to do their work experience without hours with us, we really struggled to keep them engaged. And with all of us being sort of sat at home and waiting for trainees to answer our video calls, we had a lot of time on our hands. So it really became the top priority to get that support curriculum sorted. If we could have the next slide, please. At that point, our progression team just basically ensured that our trainees were provided with guidance and support along their journey from hostel to home. Typically, this had a heavy focus on the job application process, claiming your benefits, budgeting, and with some work on emotional well-being. And what we had was a collection of tools and devices that the team had brought from previous roles or had developed with individual trainees along the way. What we didn't have was a clear pathway or structure for a new trainee to follow. And we also didn't have any means of measuring the impact of the huge amount of work we were doing on soft skills. So something like public speaking or being part of a team or something like that. So to start with, we drilled down to what was the essence of the work that we did, and always trying to bear in mind what we could reasonably and responsibly do. We often have to remind each other, like, you're not a financial advisor or you're not an immigration lawyer, so we have to be careful. But we pinpointed 3 key areas of focus for our curriculum, which were well-being, career, and home. And they were areas that we knew that we were already providing some support in, and we were confident that we could develop a strong curriculum within. Next slide. We also knew that we wanted to keep 3 values at the core of everything that we designed. So it needed to be rooted in a strengths-based approach. It needed to be tailored to individual trainees, and it needs to be trainee-led and based in their own reflections of their development. We were really determined, actually, to keep our trainees involved in our redesign process, and sort of guided by Charlie, we started with an anonymous survey of our trainees to sort of gauge their feelings of the programme, and we got one response. So it didn't feel very helpful, but it certainly like reinforced the idea that in this new world of working from home, we had to find a new way to re-engage our trainees. Next slide. Never a team that to be deterred. We soldiered on, and we established that what we really wanted was like a pick and mix of tools that our trainees could dip in and out of, and sort of plan their route through our curriculum. And that would allow us to maintain that sort of tailored approach. Through a lot of brainstorming, we sort of narrowed it down to 21 items that we that were linked to those 3 areas of focus, and we thought we could really deliver on. So as Meg touched on, our program is 200 hours and it's divided into 50-hour chunks. And now with our lovely smorgasbord of support ingredients, at every 50 hours, our progression team sit down with our individual trainees and we review our support ingredients, and they choose what they want to focus on for the next 50 hours. So maybe it's a couple of things out of well-being and something out of the career section. Maybe I literally just come off of a 50-hour review with somebody before this event, and there we are going for it with the career, and that is what we're focused on for the next 50 hours. But this is a great tool and a guide, and it keeps our meetings and our discussions with trainees really focused, but still allows them to decide their own path. Next slide. Once we had picked out those areas, what we needed to do was organize the tools that we already had and also create new ones to fill the gaps. And applying our strengths-based approach to the work that we did, as well as the work we did with our trainees, the team took the lead on different areas. And what was great about that is it meant that we could maintain our motivation whilst working from home and follow our passions and our interest. And it also means that we've got some sort of great experts on the team now. We've got people who know so much more about immigration than they ever thought they would, or people who know huge amounts about universal credit. And at the end of the project, we developed this lovely library. Oh, I'm losing an earphone. Of tools and resources, and we were really keen to steer clear of too many worksheets because we didn't want it to feel like school. So we have a great selection of sort of guides and advice sheets on everything from immigration advice to how to pack for when you're moving home. We also have a selection of exercises like the ones you can see on the screen that can be done ideally with the support of a progression officer, but they can be done independently. And as we're rarely getting to see our trainees in person, that was really important to us, that they could be used independently. Next slide. So we now have this amazing curriculum, and it's really clear what we can offer our trainees right from the start, and also members of this team can just step in and pick it up, and it's really usable and easy to understand. The cherry on the cake for us really was our beautiful new impact hub. It's beautiful for me. I haven't put it on the screen because it's actually huge and slightly terrifying if you don't know how to use it, but it is really light touch, and that was really important to us because it can be a huge workload, and managing your impact measurement system can be hugely time consuming for the frontline workers, and it was really key for it. I can see Jude nodding. It was really important for us to keep that manageable day to day, and we have a means now of recording very easily those very quantifiable things like the number of hours in work experience, number of IDs that we've bought, number of food hygiene certificates achieved, but we also now have our lovely pot of potential. And this is a tool that allows our trainees to self-assess, and we do this throughout the programme. And whilst it allows us as progression officers to direct their journey and suggest areas of focus, it really lets the trainees planned their path in a much more thoughtful way. They've sat down, they've reflected on where they are and where they were and where they want to be, and how we can get that using our support ingredients. To wrap it up, if we're really honest, we're actually still in the testing phase. I'm sure lots of you have remember being back last spring and we thought it's cool, we'll be back in prep meeting our trainees by the end of the summer. And actually we're just getting there now, and still these things are happening over the phone or video calls. But we have a new cohort of trainees and we are loving using this new curriculum, and it's a big relief to have this clear path through the program now.
Great, thank you, Tori. Thank you, Meg, as well. It was good to see all the process from the beginning to the end, and all the kind of iteration and all the tools that you introduced step by step. It was really interesting to see. I can see that we have already some messages and some links in the chat. There's one question from Karen that was for Meg, but I guess it's from Fat Macy's. And is, do you ever work with the waste management, water related and other related sustainable services to add on to your programs? So it adds to services offered while contributing to sustainable development as well.
Hi, Karen. Nice to see you again. We're in the very, very first stages of actually existing. So that sort of blue wooden building that you saw very briefly is our new deli that opened early January. So we only managed to open on the sort of 12th of January, right into a tier 5 London lockdown. And I suppose so the short answer is no. All of these things are things we really want to work on, but we're sort of still in that what on earth are we doing now that we physically exist somewhere stage. But we've got some really big plans with sort of planting, growing on the site, and really helping our trainees learn about the whole sort of food cycle, you know, from seed through to kitchen, and really learn the background of produce and ingredients and things like that. So yeah.
Great, thank you for the clarification, and it's good to see what your plans are for the future. There are already some requests on bring Fat Macy's to Brighton and to Amsterdam, so you can put them in the list already.
Quick question from Karen. Hi, Meg. Good to see you again too. I'm sorry if you covered this already, but who's Macy's? Why Fat?
Yeah, it's a very good question. We get it all the time, and I actually never answer it. So I suppose to the point of when we were sort of designing the logo and the branding, I was really bad at coming up with a good name. Naming things is so hard. And so we just had loads of workshops with our trainees, and one of them came up with Fat Macy's. And everyone was a bit confused. And then he explained that. So Macy is an anagram of YMCA, which is the sort of hostel that we were working in at the time. And they have a joke in that hostel, as Alice well knows, that if you live in the hostel for too long, you'll get really fat because the food is so bad and really greasy. And he just thought it sounded like a fun name. And so we just went with it. It was as simple as that. But yeah, no one's fat and no one's called Macy, to most people's disappointment.
Great, thank you. That's good to know. Good to know the clarification. I think we are gonna move to the next speakers, and maybe we can also then kind of keep it sweet and short, so that everyone can also go back to their own lives and own evenings. But please do keep writing down the questions in the chat, and if the speakers have some time now to answer or to get in touch, if someone has some specific one, would be great. I'm gonna pass into Charlie. Thank you again, Fat Macy's team, for the presentation.
Thanks, Meg and Tori. That was brilliant. Karen, also thank you for asking that question. I was gonna definitely ask it. If not, it's one of my favorite stories. It was such an honor to work with the Fat Macy's team, and I can't wait to see kind of how all the tools kind of go down as you keep using them. So next up, we have the amazing Pivot. We've got Alice Moxley, the founder of Pivot, who's going to be talking to us about the ethical and sustainable brand, which helps to empower people experiencing homelessness to pivot their lives through making. And I'm sure Alice is going to point out, but if not, she's also wearing some of her amazing jewelry. And I'm sure there's quite a few people on the call that might be wearing some of it too. Over to you, Alice.
Hi, I'm Alice. I founded Pivot in 2020 on the 3rd of February 2020, and we went into national lockdown 49 days later. So lots of people ask me, like, how's COVID been for you? And I've said, well, we've only ever existed in COVID. So today I'm going to talk really briefly, basically, about how I set it up, why I set it up. My training as an architect, my job at Fat Macy's, it's a running theme here, and my time at Year Here, which Meg and I both did to then set up our social enterprises. And also I want to talk about the way that we manufacture jewelry, because I think the process is really important. So that's Mehmet, who's one of our makers. I've got to remember, you don't remember the order of the slides, but here we go. So that's me in my 4th year at Edinburgh University. You can see the castle behind me after my final project. So I sort of fell out of love with architecture after 8 years, and moved to Armenia for 6 months to find myself, and then found Year Here while I was out there, and came back to London and did Year Here. And Year Here is a 10-month program in learning how to set up a social enterprise. And as part of that, you do a 5-month placement. And mine was with Fat Macy's. So there I am, 2 years younger than I am today, without the fringe. And there's Meg as well, and lots of the trainees. And I had a wonderful time. And Meg is a brilliant person. So she's a massive, massive supporter of Pivot. So yeah, I just want to say good things about Meg, really. That's me, just in case you didn't realize. So we were based out of the YMCA, and my job with Fat Macy's was before they'd set up their kind of support program, and I was working basically just me and Meg on the support team, and part of my job was trying to get people into work, because after someone completes a Fat Macy's program, they need to be employed. And I was finding that although many people were willing to work, there were loads of restrictions that were stopping them from getting to work. So, for example, your breakfast is at 8 and your dinner's at 5. And so you need a job that works within those hours. You're also living on £6 a day. So a £1.50 bus journey is extortionate. So you probably don't want to travel anywhere. And sometimes people just don't want to get out of bed in the morning. It's a 154 bed hostel. There's fire alarms that go off. There's loud noises in the bedrooms next to each other. Lots of people suffer from depression. It's a very chaotic place to live. And that means that, work really needs to be understanding and flexible. And often it's not. And there was kind of this strange paradox where the job centre was saying, you need to get a job. And there wasn't any kind of sympathy about the context of trying to get a job while you're living in this sort of situation. So I sort of posed the question, can I find some way of just taking work directly to people so I can just remove that barrier, thereby overcoming them. So, slides, timetables, transport, chaotic environment. So flexible, local and stable. So why jewelry? I didn't start a jewelry business because I saw a profitable market, or because I had that much knowledge about it beyond my own time, like doing it as a hobby. I started making jewelry because I kind of thought it would be quite an obvious small scale thing to take into a spatially restricted environment. So just to go back to the architecture thing, I was really interested in this architect, Walter Siegel, who basically pioneered a method of building by using standard sized pieces of building material to make sort of standard but non-standard dwellings. So if you're ever in Southeast London, this is Walter's Way. It's amazing. Go and walk through it. I'm sure the people who live there get really annoyed by architecture geeks like me walking through it, but it's really interesting. You can use standard elements to kind of create your own custom made house, and it's really beautiful. And the other amazing thing about it was built by a community, and it was built as social housing. And so the community got together and they all learned how to make a building, having never designed or built anything before. And so we kind of use this idea in the way that we make jewelry. We have prefabricated elements that we have laser cut, and then we bring them back to the hostel where they're sanded and finished and assembled. And so as Siegel managed to teach a community of people with no previous experience of building houses, we can do the same with jewelry. And so we use cold connections like rivets and jump rings to make our jewelry. So we don't use any fire in its process, which means that people can make it in their bedrooms. And for instance, where the hostel have said you're not allowed metal files in bedrooms because we think they're dangerous, we use glass nail files to finish off the jewelry. So we're kind of finding all these amazing little ways of getting away with it in a safe way, obviously. And I'm doing it again. This is some of our jewelry made in this way with these cold connections. And that's Jason, one of our makers, who actually also works for Fat Macy's. He's managed to land a job 2 days a week with us and 2 days a week with Meg, and he's brilliant. We all love him. We all fight over him. So he, in fact, has managed to train other makers how to make jewelry. So that's why we employed him, because it turned out that actually he was really good at teaching. And so we're then developing the way that we do things, because we can now employ our makers to train other makers and create this amazing kind of cycle. And so the woman who we work with a lot at the hostel, who's head of education and training, has said that Pivot has provided a sense of community for those involved in the project, and that the makers work as a team, and that they've basically managed to delegate and coordinate each stage of the jewelry making process to try and achieve their shared goal. And this has been really rewarding for them. It's encourage them to show a greater appreciation and respect for each other and to gain confidence. And these are some more of the testimonials from our makers. And it's really interesting. There's been all these kind of unintended consequences about making jewelry, because where it started as an idea of, can I take work? It's then turned into this thing of, this work's really rewarding, because you go from a dirty piece of metal to a finished piece of jewelry that then someone wants to buy, and then you see someone wearing it, and that is a really, really transformative process. So we've just piloted our first official 12-week program, also in COVID. We started in September and finished in December, where we're trying to take our makers through the process of design all the way through to selling. And each week we go into the hostel and we run these kind of different stages of that process, to go from the dirty piece of metal all the way through to the selling part. So this year we've donated £7,000 worth of service charge to the hostel. So we support all our residents whilst they're on the programme with us by paying their service charge. We've made over 3,000 pieces of jewellery, delivered over 750 hours of work-based training, and provided over 100 hours of one-to-one coaching, because we also have a coach on board with us because of the fact that we found the work that we're doing to be very therapeutic and very kind of, it does lots of good things. So we want to really build on that. Sorry, I'm not using very good words. And this is us at Qubits. So Qubits are a glasses maker, and they've been donating all their offcuts to us. So we've been making glasses chains out of old glasses, and it's stocked in 6 shops, although you can't buy it because they're all closed. And then this is us at Westfield in December, and we had a stand there, which was amazing, and Westfield gave it to us for free. So thank you very much, Westfield. And that, I think that's the end. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alice, for the story. It's good to see also the transition and the work and the collaboration in hostels, and this double collaboration and partnership of different angulation of working with people. That's very interesting. And it's good that you are, it's also interesting to see how similarities and differences between all the different projects and data as well during COVID, and trying to find new ways to do it in these random times. We have some comments and some questions. There's some suggestions as well, the things that you might want to look afterwards.
Someone's asked if we sell online. We do.
In case you were wondering.
I'll put it in the thing. We couldn't have pivot.org because it was £80,000. So our website is makepivot.org. But I'll write this down.
Great. One of the questions about your business model and who do you partner with?
So we're a social firm. We create employment opportunities for people, and we basically sell the jewelry to fund our programs. So it's quite simple. We've partnered with like the YMCA in London, and we've partnered with another hostel down in Somerset, which is really exciting. We have a Taunton collection, but basically, yeah, Westfield and Qubits and anyone that will have us, really.
Great. And there's another question around, are your trainees part of this process too, in terms of selling online?
Yeah, so we, as part of our program with them, we kind of do a marketing and social media thing. So we've been trialing ways of getting them more involved. But also on the program, they design and make their own piece of jewelry. So we'd really like to be able to start selling that. At the moment, all of the designs really come from me mostly, and they're all, you can tell that they're quite geometrical, and I think it'd be nice to get some variants in there.
Great. I can see that there are already some new customers for your
Yay.
And lots of nice comments as well about the project, and some inspiring examples, and other maybe things that you want to look at.
I suppose the other thing I should say about the selling is that our intention is to be at pop-ups, and at our pop-ups we always have a maker's table. So at Westfield we always had one of our makers down there doing customizations and making the jewelry, and like very much like the making bit being the process of the selling. We're only selling online so much because of the situation that we're in, and actually it's really nice to be out there and being in a physical space.
Thank you for sharing your story and sharing all the journey and the passion that you put into it. I'm gonna leave it to your comments and catch up with some of the suggestions that there are in the chat in case you're interested. And thank you so much, Alice, for sharing and presenting tonight.
So first of all, I just want to say just a massive thank you. It's been so fantastic to be able to hear from Callie at the GlassHouse, from Jude at InHouse Records, from Tori and Meg at Fat Macy's, and from Alice at Pivot. So a big round of applause. Thank you so much for giving up some time from your evening. We're really, really grateful that you were kind of happy to come talk to our community. We, as a kind of like the co-organisers of Service Lab, we really felt like there was so much to learn from some of the brilliant kind of really innovative ways that social enterprises are working, the way that they're pivoting, and the way that the kind of business models are structured, and the way that they're constantly changing to be able to kind of meet different needs, and really empowering kind of everyone that they're working with as well. So we now all need to go and help support some of these businesses. So please tweet, please share as much as possible. Please go start buying more houseplants from the GlassHouse. Go get yourself listening to some really brilliant tunes from InHouse Records. Eat some fab food. There's some amazing hampers. There's lots of things up for grabs from Fat Macy's. And look and feel fabulous with some amazing new jewelry from Pivot. I think there's even a new online connection, so I think I'm going to be looking at that later on. And just before we go over to the video, also want to mention that our next event is going to be in April. We're currently looking at a theme, something around behavioural science and health. So if anyone's got any thoughts of who might be a great speaker that you'd love to listen to, please send over some suggestions. The YouTube video for this event will be up online in the next couple of weeks, be edited together, and there'll be kind of captions and things like that. And I think that's pretty much it. So we'll go back to Otler, see if we can try and hear some of these, hear some of this great music and see some videos from Jude.
Got my favorite t-shirt, I know these words, so hard to see. Yo, I wanna entertain the masses, and more stains on my classics, and I've worn them out. I do drugs, it's a habit. I can't stop, I can't hack it without. I wore them out. Crooked smiles again. Crooked smiles again. Crooked smiles again, and Yo.
Great. I was not sure if you could hear it because it did disappear, but good. That's good. It was a different way to end an event, never done in this way. Thank you for sending the video so we managed to all see it. And thank you again, all of you and all the people that attended as well. I hope that also like leaving with a song will give you a bit of good vibes to your evenings.
That was lovely. Have a great week, everyone. Thanks for joining.